Hi everyone. This is Uber Coach Michelle, but we're going to drop the Uber and we're just going to stick to Michelle. So I am super excited to be recording this because when I first had the Confessions of a Conscious Coach 10 days, 10 hardcore lessons learned, I thought I created the event so that it would automatically record, and lo and behold, it did it. Surprise! So I've got some of these really cute gadgets. I just kind of figured this out. So I feel like a kid in a candy shop. So bear with me. But for those of you who don't know, and for those of you who may have never heard of me, or we've not met on Facebook or through my business, I am a spiritual life coach and soulpreneur. I work with highly sensitive people and spiritual people who are looking to grow their businesses and start a business based on who they are and their spiritual gifts. Hoorah! So it's been quite a journey. And this actually all came about because recently I just completed 10 days of noble silence at a Vipassana meditation retreat. I know, right? I told you, bear with me. I'm going to be doing that a lot. This is what happens when you leave the coach to her own devices. But no, on a serious note, I wanted to have some very special time. I wanted to share some very in-depth, very soul-filled revelations, things that had come to my mind and to my heart when I went on the retreat. I had never heard of Vipassana meditation. I encourage people to Google it, research it. This is not a sales pitch for Vipassana meditation, but this is not a sales pitch at all. It's just me uncut, quite like something I've never done before. And I really just, you have these aha moments. You have these moments of clarity, these moments of where you feel like a ton of bricks falls on your head and you're like, whoa, like I've heard that before, but all of a sudden it really makes sense. Like I get it, like to the deepest fiber of my bone, I get it. And so that's what I had. So you have to imagine, let me just start by saying I was so not prepared. So not prepared. I don't know what I thought, but it was not what I thought, if that makes any sense. I really thought I was going to go to a retreat center and it was going to be kind of kumbaya and you know what I mean? Like all this stuff. And I really just didn't have anything in mind. And I'll be honest, when I first went, I didn't want to have any expectations. So I think that was a part of it. I didn't want to go in with preconceived expectations. I didn't want to set myself up and then miss an amazing experience because I was holding on too tightly to what I thought it should be. Trust me, that's going to be another theme that's going to come up. And so, I get there and I've got my little bullet. It's this like silver tone little carry-on that I use for travel for business. And I've got my blanket and my clothes and I have enough underwear because a good friend told me, she's like, there's no washer and dryer. You wash your stuff by hand. Like this is as close to monastic, like think monastery kind of living. I wasn't told there was noble silence. Like I knew two people who went through this and neither one of them thought it pertinent to let me know that. So I wasn't moved by it because the practice of meditation is all about stillness and being quiet within. So it made total sense. And I was super excited. And I just had some really interesting things happen. So I'm going to get started in sharing what these pearls are. And I do encourage you guys to grab a pen and paper. I know this time it is being recorded, so you'll be able to come back and reference the video. Okay, so I hope that works. All right, so here are some ahas, and I didn't really write these notes down in any specific order, and I am looking at my notes because, and this is what's so funny, I'm normally the kind of coach, spiritual life coach, that I don't do notes. I don't do presentations. So this is a little bit new for me, but that was how powerful it was. You have to understand, we get there and, you know, your first night there, they feed you dinner, and that's like the only time they feed you dinner because you get up at 4 o'clock and you are in the Dhamma hall. And the Dhamma hall for Vipassana meditation is the big hall where everyone sits. And it's the feeling in the hall is very much what you would anticipate if you were probably at a Buddhist monastery, where it's rows and rows of people and it's kind of very organized. And noble silence is not just that you're not speaking to anyone, but noble silence is also that you have committed to not making any noise. So you make the commitment for 10 days to observe noble silence. You will not lie, you will not steal, and you will not kill any living thing. So this is what I'm going to do right now. You are not going to kill any living thing. And this was what was going on in my head when I heard that. Crickets. I was like, what? Because the area where you're at, we were way out in the boonies, and I mean, the nearest neighbor was maybe anywhere between 3 miles away. Like, you're surrounded by trees, and the property is on a sand bed, and it's in the heart of Georgia, and it's beautiful, but you're way out. Okay, so silence is very easily achieved in terms of minus human activity. And so for me, when I heard not killing any living things, I knew right there, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to make a pact. I'm going to have to make a pact with those eight-legged creatures called spiders. And in my heart, I thought, well, you wanted to go on this spiritual journey, so you're going to have to work that out, Mish. So in my heart, I was like, I'll deal with it when I get to it, right? So you get up at 4, you're in the Dhamma hall by 4:30, and basically you're meditating until 6:30, and then you have a break from 6:30 to 8, and then you're meditating from 8 till 11, and then you have lunch from 11 to 12, and then you have a break from 12 to 1, and then you're meditating from 1 to 2:30, then you're meditating again from 2:30 to 3:30, and then you have a break I believe at and then you continue meditating from 3:30 to 5, and then you have a tea break from 5 to 6, and then you're meditating from 6 to 7, and you have a little bit of a break, and then you are pretty much listening to a Dhamma class, and then you are meditating from 8 to 9, and you go back to your dorm, and basically you're in your bed by 9:30 and lights are out by 10, and you do it all over again. So that's just to give you guys a little bit of an outline in terms of the structure that I was in. And I know it probably sounds really strict and it probably sounds really harsh, but believe me, guys, when all you're doing is focusing on yourself and you're meditating and you're learning to be present, your meals are cooked for you, the few that there are. It's a total vegan diet. It is amazing. It is like going to a meditation spa, except minus the bubbles and the soft music and all of that. and no sauna. Yeah, no sauna. Okay. No, nothing like that. Just you and a cushion and meditating. And so, needless to say, when I got there, I walked in and I was like, yes, I've been meditating for 15 minutes a day. Awesome. I'm going to get this. Do you know what I mean? And I get there and it so was not what I was expecting. And so here were a few thoughts that came to me when I was there. And they came in various orders. So for those of you who are looking for some kind of structured and point 1 and point 2, you might want to stop the video here because this is not going to be that kind of talk video. So these were nuggets. There was a golden nuggets. And the reason why I'm sharing them is because, you know, as a personal development, transformational, spiritual life coach and teacher, I have coached and come across and had conversations with people who are on this journey of awakening, of empowerment, of transcending and consciousness. I mean, there are various levels there. Let me take that back. I don't like to use the word levels. So there are various spaces in which people occupy within their own personal transformation, within their own personal development, within their own spiritual awakening. And for everyone, it's something different. And I just had this burning desire on my heart. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to share this with my tribe. I have to share this with everyone that I know. And I know some of this is going to be maybe a little repetitive, but I'm hoping that my perspective and the way that it came about might be able to help you to deepen some truths. And I know much of this is going to definitely be validating. It's definitely going to be heartwarming. We'll have a little few laughs here and there. But I do want to dig into it now. So the first thing that I really discovered that was kind of an aha for me was, and this is the title that I give it, that you sitting here watching this video, me in my own space, the me that I've grown to know in all of my awakened state and what more that I have to grow into, you are the magic, you're the miracle, you're the ritual. And this is what thoughts for Kim says, like, you are the very thing that you're seeking. And I think I want that to sink in, because so often in life, we're chasing a dream, we're chasing a professional goal, we're chasing a dream of a certain kind of lifestyle, financial status, social status. And that's how we do start when we're younger. And then as we get older, it kind of levels off, and we do start to learn that there's more to life than just material things. And I don't mean that you are the thing that you're seeking in this supernatural way, but really about recognizing your own worth and not looking to others' companionship to validate your worth. That's what I'm talking about, because we do that, and your life experiences make you a gift to everybody else around you, that you are unique. Like, I want that to sink in. In the entire universe, there is no one else like you. Out of billions and billions of people, no one. Okay, so you may have a doppelganger, but nobody else is like you. Yeah, sit with that. There's only one you. And we spend so much of our lives looking outside of ourselves, comparing our life experience. Oh, well, what's that person doing? What are they experiencing? Ooh, they've had that kind of transformation. They've had this spiritual experience. Oh, then that must mean something, right? No. It just means exactly what it is. That's their life. And the reason why I bring that up is because when we don't take the time to recognize, to expand our own awareness of our own uniqueness and how special we are and the magic that lives inside of us, the miracle that is constantly evolving and transcending and showing up, the miracle that is you. Think of all the things that you've gone through in your life and that you've overcome, the lessons that you've learned, whether they were good lessons or they were bad lessons. But think about how they've shaped and molded you. The resiliency, the loyalty, the strength, the confidence, the truth, whether it be about other people or about yourself, right? Think about all those things in your life that maybe in the moment, like a 2-year-old, we kick and we scream and we fight against it, and we fall into victimhood. We're bawling our eyes out. Why me? Why me? And I say that because I've been there. And then if we were to look back, think about it. If you hadn't have had that experience, if you hadn't have had that miracle happen, who would you be today? Would you be as confident? Would you be as resilient? Would you be as resourceful? Would you be as intelligent? Would you have as much wisdom? Would you be able to give love even when you were going through hell? Would you be able to dig deep and find compassion for someone else when you're having a rotten day? Would you know how to be empathetic if you hadn't had that experience to be able to relate? See what I mean? And I think And I'll be honest, it's funny because when we don't take the time to realize we're the miracle, we're the magic, we're the ritual that we've been looking for, it becomes a craving and a desire for this supernatural experience. So what ends up happening is, because we're looking outside of ourselves, we're constantly looking for this big aha. Literally, we're literally looking for like the world to fall on our heads, right? We're looking for some dramatic thing, and then we're never realizing that the drama, the magic is in the mundane. The miracle is in the mundane. And like, the reason why, and I'm looking at my notes because like I said, there was so much that came out of this. I want you to understand something, that, and these are notes, believe you me, I didn't go through the 10 days thinking like, oh, this is going to be great to share with other people. I went through being like, oh my gosh, like, this is such a revelation to me. I know, and I've been doing this coaching business for like maybe 3 years shy of a decade, so it's been a while, okay? But the point is simply this: don't throw away your victories, no matter how small they may seem. It doesn't matter if someone may be able to get on a stage and eloquently speak to some transformation, or, excuse me, some deep emotional or spiritual experience that they're having, or some big breakthrough in their lives. That's fine for them. Maybe their audience is from a stage, and maybe your audience is in front of a classroom. Maybe someone else's influence is one-to-one, and your influence is from a stage. It matters not how it manifests, the victories, the miracles. What matters is that you're mindful of them, and that you recognize how important they are to your journey. So don't minimize them, no matter what they are, and no matter how they want to show up. So whether it's a touchy-feely good experience, or it's a knock 'em out, drag 'em, I'm digging graves. Oh my gosh, enough already. I'm so done with this experience. Either way, it's absolutely molding and shaping you to become exactly who you're meant to be. Believe that, and you can take that to the bank. So live like you're a miracle, live like you're magic, and live like you're the ritual. And for me being the ritual simply means that I embody different practices that speak to my soul, that help me stay connected to my truth. That's what living the ritual means. So I'm not reading about it. I'm not following along a ritual that someone else is doing because it seems like the cool thing to do, but I'm doing it because it speaks to my very soul. And you'll know what I'm talking about. So whether your ritual is meditating, or your ritual is taking slow, luxurious walks on the seashore or by a lake, if you live by an ocean, if your ritual is to get on your dirt bike and, ride for miles, maybe for some of you, your ritual is, slipping into the cathedral or the church or the chapel 15 minutes before you got to go to work. Whatever the ritual is, it matters not what the shape or form. What matters most is that you take time to connect. And and understand this. This is not about intellectualizing this concept, okay? This is about connecting your heart with the experience of making you the magic, recognizing you being the miracle, right? And engaging and engulfing your entire being in whatever ritual is going to expand your awareness even deeper than you think possible to who you really are at your most basic, soulful, powerful level. And this actually, I'm gonna be honest with you and tell you this is how this came to me. It was my typical like 4:28 a.m. and I'm dashing to get to the Dhamma hall. And as I walk out, it's pitch black because at 4:30 it's still dark. And I walk out, and I'll be honest, I'm almost sorry a little bit that this didn't happen like day one. And the truth is, it's such a process with the Vipassana. Like, trying to sit for an hour is no joke. So you're not really thinking about anything else except how sore your tush feels, and you know what I mean, how achy your muscles might feel, and a slew of other things praying and hoping that, you know, your tummy bowel movements aren't as loud as the next door neighbor next to you. There's just so many hilarious moments. But the point is that I was walking out and I looked up. And when I looked up, trust me, I've been to places all over the world where I've seen the stars, okay? So I'm not impressed by a starry night, but this night, I kid you guys not, I looked up, and the best way that I can describe it is that the sky looked as if it appeared to me as if I were looking through the Hubble telescope. You know how powerful that is? I am not exaggerating, guys. It was so magnified. It was so powerful. It was overwhelming. Overwhelming. And then I looked, and I'm right back there right now. I looked to my left, and when I looked up, it was the Milky Way, but like you were looking at it through the Hubble. And I remember standing there and feeling like such awe, and in that moment, kind of intellectualizing but connecting it with my heart, the realization that I'm nothing but stardust. You know what I mean? When you get that perspective that I'm the magic, I'm the miracle. I'm living in this reality on this planet Earth. And I'm like a compared to all this vastness that I saw. And I remembered reading just a few weeks ago that some scientists had pretty much discovered that everything in the universe, everything on this earth that you could possibly think of is nothing but energy. That when you look at it through the you know, like if you were to look at it through the Hubble, it would be nothing but atoms and protons just pinging against each other. And it made me think, wow, we're made of the same things that stars are made of. The same, this is a fact, guys. The same components, the same substances that make up the stars are found in our body. And if that doesn't blow you away, I don't know what else to say. Okay? But I remember standing there, and like a whisper in my entire being, I heard, you're the ritual, you're the magic, you're the miracle. And so I wanted to share that with you guys. And trust me, if you ever want to if you ever want to bring things down to earth and get a perspective, literally find the most abandoned spot for miles from anything. Like, I can't even, unless you go to Jessup, Georgia and hope for a starry night. Nature, the heavens, the skies, the stars have always done it for me. So anyway, that was a big, profound moment for me, that for that fraction of a few minutes. And I was a little late getting into the Dhamma hall because it was one of those moments where I was like, I think I'm going to be late because I cannot miss this. Excuse me. But recognizing that within me and this vessel was the miracle, was the magic, lives the ritual, was pretty profound. I was pretty stoked. So the other thing that came to me, and this came to me out of the practice of Vipassana. I'm very comfortable. So one of the things that I recognized right away is that if you want calm in your life, if you want peace in your life, if you're someone who just feels like, why can't anything go right? And I'm always stressed and people are always pissing me off. And, you know, or maybe you're someone who feels like, oh, I've been on this spiritual journey and I'm just ready for a breakthrough. And, you know, like, I just want to be like Thich Nhat Hanh or, you know, Deepak Chopra or whoever your spiritual idol, guru, teacher maybe, or just someone that you admire and emulate their characteristics. And maybe you might be feeling a little frustrated or just weary and doubtful and just kind of losing a little bit of that confidence of maybe what you're doing is right. And let me tell you something. So here's the basic principle of what came to me while I was at Vipassana. And bear with me, because I'll let you know the moments, what was going on with me while I was trying to bend myself in a pretzel and do all these cute little things to be able to sit in meditation for an hour. But basically, when you want to experience calm in your exterior world, then there needs to be calm inside. Okay? Everything is made up of energy. This is not a debate. This is universal truth, guys. If you got any questions about anything that I say, feel free to email me or put it in the comments. Okay. So when you think of it, that everything is energy, think of birds of a feather flock together. Like attracts like. Now, I'm not going to mince words. Okay. This was one of the hardest things for me to embrace, to wrap my heart around. Because one thing, hang on. Okay. One thing that I've recognized as truth is, just because we can intellectualize a concept doesn't always mean, and we can understand it intellectually, it doesn't always mean that in our hearts we're ready to accept it. And this was, excuse me, this was a tough one for me, because it meant the responsibility was all on me. It meant that I could not blame anyone. It meant that I couldn't use anything outside of me as an excuse as to why I was not experiencing the life that I wanted. And when I say that, I'm not talking about material gain. I'm talking about that place within us where we desire peace, where we want to experience joy, we want to experience a sense of belonging, we want to experience love. We want to experience, I want to feel safe. I want to feel loved. I want to feel happy. You know, I want to feel content. I want to feel not satisfied, but I want to feel fulfilled. You know, those kind of emotional experiences. And I learned that in Vipassana that you have to first work on the inside. And the reason why your outward experience is not manifesting, or you're not having the experiences of peace and love and joy and confidence and fulfillment, it's because something within you is something in you, there lives a vibrational, energetic ping, like signature of the opposite. So remember what I said before, that we can intellectualize something, or we can understand it intellectually, but until our hearts are ready to accept it and our soul is ready to live it, then it's not a vibrational match. And we understand this with everything else in our lives, everything else. But when it comes to our own personal lives and the experiences that we're wanting to have, it kind of goes, huh? I don't understand. Moko, what? What's going on? And then we get kind of like, I don't get it. So this is what I mean by a vibrational match. Let's say that there's someone in your life who, for whatever reasons, you're connected. And it could be a relative, it could be a colleague, it could be a partner in business, whatever it is. And let's say that you see yourself as a relatively nice and forgiving person, right? You do pretty well. And let's say that, let's say it's a coworker. Her name is Jane. And for any guys watching this, his name is Bob. So you got Jane and Bob, right? And you have this image of yourself where you feel like, you know, I'm fair, I'm a team player, I work at getting along, I'm not rude, right? But for some reason, there's this one coworker, Jane/Bob, that you just cannot get along with. There just seems to be this friction. There seems to be this power play. It just, whatever it is, the vibes are not great. And when you talk to people, you do find yourself at times, maybe, you know, saying things like, you know, I don't know what's up with that person. I mean, that's their stuff. You know what I mean? Like, Trust me, I've been there, okay? Anything that I say today that you feel like, oh my gosh, Michelle is a fly on the wall. Like she's been listening in on my iPhone conversations. No, it's because I've been that girl. I've said those things. I've been there and done it. Trust me. But I guess the point that I'm making is we can have an image of ourselves that doesn't line up to the reality. Because the truth is that it's not loving when we speak of people, and it's negative. And sometimes we think negativity as, well, I'm not cussing the person out and I'm not being overtly nasty and mean. No, but there are subtle things in how we speak about people or a situation that we know it has that little edge of an attitude or unforgiveness or bitterness. And it's so subtle that most often we deceive ourselves. And then we're wondering why, though we say we've forgiven the person or the situation, why we just can't seem to have an experience of bygones be bygones, like we've moved past this. It's because within you, there's this vibrational match of disharmony. And so because if there's anything within you that is not loving, that is not of integrity, then your life experiences are going to show up to match that. Now I'm not going to lie, that's a little bit more of an in-depth conversation, but let's just keep it simple and let's just say we've got to deal with the reality. Okay, so how did this aha come up to me? Because when you have to sit for an hour without moving, you can have it in your mind, because you've meditated before, that this is not going to be a problem, right? Right. And so at one point in my meditation, I'm sitting and I couldn't sit past 15 minutes. Don't ask me why I thought I'd be able to sit for an hour when all I've ever done is 15 minutes and you know, pushing really hard to be consistent with even doing that every day, much less twice a day or whatever. But the bottom line is that I remember sitting in the Vipassana meditation and I just felt so angry. And I felt very angry with myself, and I was just dissatisfied with my body because I felt like my body had betrayed me. And it was this energy of, oh, I don't like where I'm at, and my body is not doing what I want. And I was getting filled with so much frustration and so much anxiety. And the more that I was feeling this, the more that my experience in my sitting meditation, that was what was happening, is I couldn't sit still. Is my body would betray, like not betray me, but it would not do what I wanted to do, because I was holding this energy of a fight. So it was almost like, it was not almost, it was fighting with myself, never realizing that I was creating the experience that I was fighting. It was like trippy, really trippy, but it was so amazing. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I literally had to just say, you know what? Sit your butt on the cushion. Like, stop fighting your body. Stop having these mental thoughts about your body that, oh, it's not like this, and if only it would do that, because it was creating just this vortex of struggle. And it was making my experience miserable. Guys, I literally must have cried like the first 3 nights. It was literally that intense. I was just like, oh my God. Like literally after day 2, I was like, what in the world did I get myself into? Like, I'm not going to make it. I am not making it to 10 days. And, you know, what I guess I really am trying to say is, whatever it is in your life that you feel like is not showing up, you're not experiencing, or maybe the opposite of what you're desiring is showing up, and you are like ready to take people out, dig graves, you know, like go live on a deserted island because you're just like, oh my gosh, what is going on with me? I want to say to you, breathe. And I'm not being funny when I say that, but really just relax. Release the tension, release, just literally exhale. Because all that we do when we get into that space is we are churning and churning and churning energy like a vortex, and it gets bigger 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 and bigger until finally you feel almost literally engulfed and consumed by it all, and you can't see your way out. believe it or not, getting still really quick, letting go the energy of what's going on. And when I say the energy, think emotion. So, when you might get really angry about something, and sometimes getting to that space might mean blowing your gasket, and then whoo, it's kind of like think of a balloon, when you put so much air in it, what happens? It pops. So there's only one way the air is coming out. It's either going to pop, or you're going to release the nozzle and let it just come out. But either way, that building up of pressure, that situation does not decrease itself. It doesn't change until one of those things happen. Now you've got to decide which path you want to take. And for me, that's very much what life is about. You can pop or you can release. But either way, that air is coming out of that bubble. Okay? And then I think one of the things is deal with the reality. Deal with the reality that is right in front of you, and not what you think should be the reality. Okay? So one of my struggles when I was sitting in Vipassana was I had this idea of who I should be. Like, I brought my titles with me. I brought my experience with me. And I was like, oh, this is a whole spiritual thing. This is going to be great. This is right up my alley. Blah! Busted my butt. Because it took me 4 days before I could probably sit still for 45 minutes, not even an hour, for 45 minutes. And that felt like death at times, because I was putting so much pressure on myself about my expectation, about who I was supposed to be, that I wasn't dealing with where I was at in the moment. And where I was I can only sit for 15 minutes. So I couldn't manage my expectations of myself realistically. It was causing me emotional stress and strain. And the truth is that we do that a lot in our lives. We do. We look at ourselves and we think things like, how old am I? I need to be up on it already. Or I've been on this spiritual journey. I've heard all of this before. And yet, why am I hitting a wall? Why am I not moving further? Why is my life not unfolding faster or on the track that I think it should? And a lot of the times it's because we're not dealing with the reality of who we are. We're dealing with the illusion of who we are. So the illusion is the image of who we think we are based on what we tell ourselves, and not the reality of how we're showing up and what we're showing up with. And what I was showing up with, a grown woman who's not physically active, who has only meditated 15 minutes in the morning a day. And even then, I'll go through stints where I do it every day. And then I'll have a period of 2-3 months where I'm like every other day, and it gets really busy. And so that was really unrealistic for me to come in and think within a day or two, I was going to be able to sit for hours. No, it's not going to happen. And for some odd reason in my head, that just goes to show you where I was at. I just thought it was going to be a lot easier. And you know what, boo? It just was not. And Michelle was not happy about it, because I'm just not used to things being that super challenging. And when I was faced with one of the most intense spiritual challenges of my life that I've been through, and I don't even know how long, I was ready to put up the dukes and be angry and be mad. I was just like, what is going on? I'm not having this. And I had to get that all out of the way. And I had to be okay with where my body was, and I had to be okay with not knowing, not having arrived, like being a learner, being a student with this whole new experience. And the minute that I found that space, the minute that I eased into that, it was almost like I literally just was like, I'm done. Like I had to give up the fight with myself. I had to stop fighting myself and just be in that moment and be okay with where I was physically, emotionally, and mentally. And it just had to be okay. And the most beautiful thing was that as soon as I had that aha, all of a sudden I started finding the strength, the resiliency, and the capacity within myself to sit longer and longer. And as each day went by, I sat a little bit longer. So I let go of the fight. And I think for a lot of us, just have to stop fighting. Have to stop fighting ourselves. Stop fighting and being angry because life is not showing up the way that you may have wanted it to, or the way that you dreamed it would. Stop fighting the realities of our lives and instead embracing it and seeing it for what it is, a beautiful, adventurous, intense at times, painful at times, but also joyful and amazing and wondrous and miraculous. And when we're able to be with what is, that's when the golden nuggets come up. That's when the wisdom unfurls itself. That's when we see ourselves for the amazing souls having a human experience that we are. But as long as we live in the illusion, as long as we continue to fight ourselves, and as long as we refuse to be with what is right in front of us and either deal with it, embrace it, work with it, and no matter how long it takes. Like, truthfully, guys, when I was at the Vipassana meditation, I just got to a place where I was like, you know what? Acceptance. I may never get to sit for an hour. I may never just get to that place. And you know what? That's okay, because it's going to be whatever it's going to be, and I'm going to learn what I need to learn for my growth. And you know, right when I had that aha, it was like, I literally felt like I had this moment, like your life flashes before your eyes. Okay, my life didn't flash before my eyes, but I was thinking about my whole life. And I was examining myself and thinking, you're always pushing yourself, Mission. You're always having these expectations of who you think you're supposed to be because you're helping other people to grow, and now you're expanding the business and you're opening up more to your own spiritual awakening, and you know, you're venturing into that field of just advancement of human consciousness, and the world is just so amazing. And I was putting all this pressure on myself, all this pressure, instead of just being me and being good with that, and not being okay and actually being okay with, you know, my experience doesn't look like someone else's experience, and that's okay too, which brings me to my next aha that I had. So of course you have to understand when you get to, well, not of course, let me rephrase that. So of course I would be in a situation where I'm looking at all these people. So from the outside, everyone looks like after day 2, they've got it together. Okay, people are like doing it. And I'm thinking, okay, clearly something's wrong with me. I'm doing something wrong. Like, I'm going through waves of emotions, because when you sit, things come up. Your emotions come up. You start to see your mind and the thoughts that run through your mind. And I'm looking at everyone else and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what is wrong with me? Like, I can't sit for even 45 minutes at that time. And everyone seems to be so grounded and centered. Meanwhile, I know within me, I'm like, ah! Like, it may have looked like something else on the outside, but to me, I'm just like, like, not happy. And feeling like, oh my gosh, this is only the second day and I have to be here for 10 days. What in the world? And so I got into this place and I thought, you know, let me sit like this. And it was really funny, guys, because when I first got there, I was like, oh, okay, this person, they got this little cushion. I was like, let me get a cushion. So I get a cushion and I sit and I'm like, and it didn't take more than like 5-10 minutes. I was like, okay, this is not working. And I'm like, oh, she's got blankets. And she looked, one girl that was there, she had like a towering pizza of blankets. It was hysterical. I mean, if the girl was 5 feet, when she sat down, she felt like 6 feet tall. Like, she had a mountain of blankets and pillows. And so I was like, okay, let me do that. Nothing helped. And the most amazing and funny thing is that I learned, because I would go up to the front. And so you're in this big hall and everyone's really quiet and they're really just being, you know, like within themselves. And there are various times during the day where they give you these breaks. So you get to stretch your legs for like 10-15 minutes, but then you go right back in and you have to sit with yourself. And during some of these breaks, when other people are stretching their legs, you do have a male and a female teacher sitting at the front, and they do serve as almost like, you know, guides, but they're teachers. So these are teachers who have been trained in this process over in India, and they've been doing it for years, and they're qualified to help you with whatever symptoms come up and sensations come up and feelings. And you're allowed to go up and ask a question. And at one point, I had to go to the teacher, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what is wrong with me? I just can't do this. And so I explained to her that no matter what I did, I felt like, literally, guys, I would start off like this. And when I would open my eyes, I'd be like this. Like leaned over to the side. And I was like, what is going on? And she finally looked at me and she said, you have an imbalance internally. Now, I don't know if many of you ever daydream about this, but if you ever had a daydream of like God, booming voice from the heavens, that's how it felt like to me. And I was just like, I have an internal balance. It was like someone telling you had like a disease or you're going to lose an arm. I felt so defective because I was just like, how the hell am I supposed to sit for an hour? Because, you know, your spine supports your body. And I knew that much from the years that I had been meditating. So to learn that I had actually acquired an imbalance, I was done. I was just like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. Because when you're leaning like this, it becomes even triple the challenge to be still in your body. And it's not just about being still and following your breath. There's a whole technique with Vipassana. And what I will say at this point is the technique involves bringing your consciousness to such a high level where you are literally feeling your own energy, literally from the top of your head to the soles of your feet and back up again. And so I say that to demonstrate or to open up space for some deeper understanding as to why that affected me so deeply when the teacher said you have an imbalance. Because when you're leaning like this, it's a little hard to follow and feel your energy. And I mean, sometimes I even went down to here. And it's really hard to follow your energy and know when you're like this, like what's up, what's straight, what's down. And it was crazy. And I just thought, freaking hey, I'm not going to be able to do this. And I'm stuck here for 10 days. And I bawled I went back to my seat and I remembered I sat and I let a breath out and I just started to cry. I just started to cry because I felt so defective. I felt like, how in the world am I going to be able to do this? And it's funny because in looking at what other people were doing, I got to this space where I sat down and I said, okay, Mish, you have a choice. You can let this stop you, and this is as far as you go. Or you can accept that you have an imbalance, embrace that, and keep it going. Keep it moving. Not in spite of, right? Not despite the imbalance, but including it, allowing it, in accepting that imbalance. And with that imbalance, you sit your butt down on that couch. And I kid you not, guys, I sat down and the minute, and I learned a very good lesson, and this was the lesson. You cannot compare your experience, no matter what it is you're going through in your life, no matter what your spiritual journey, no matter what the transformation you're looking for personally, internally, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're looking at this and you're trying to start a business, be a better parent, you know, have a happier life, build your confidence, doesn't matter. If you're trying to ascend to a different dimension spiritually, the point is simply this. You cannot look at someone else's experience and try to take it and try to have that experience for your own. Okay? Let me be clear. You are put on this earth to live your life, not somebody else's, and not someone else's version of what they're telling you is your life. This is your life. And every experience that you have is so precious and so important to you. You can share those experiences. You can share them in the hopes that it'll help burden the chaos for someone else, in the sense of they're thinking that they're all alone. You can share your experiences with other people, hoping that it will shine a light for them and inspire them to keep on in their journey. But we never should share our experiences to convert someone to do exactly what we did exactly the same way. No. Remember what I said before about the Milky Way? About each of us being made up of the same substance as the stars? There's no two stars alike. And think of how vast the universe is. We can't. And neither can we look at someone else's experience and wish it were our own, or compare their experience to ours to either validate or invalidate, to nullify or quantify who we are. And I'm going to give you a really great example. Many years ago, 2015, a decade ago, guys, there was a time in my life that I experienced such heartbreak. I really came to a point where I was like, I don't know if I will ever get over this broken heart, because the pain was so intense. I had never in my life, and this is being really vulnerable, I had never in my life until this relationship loved someone so deeply. And when it didn't work out, I tell you, there were days I felt like I couldn't breathe. But here's the irony and the beauty of that story, which this video is not about that, about relationships. So I'm deliberately not going into great detail, but I will say that, and yes, the person is still a part of my life. We're friends now. But I will say that that relationship taught me my biggest lesson in unconditional love. And it was painful. Excuse me, like so painful. I never thought I'd fall in love again. I didn't have the will or desire to want to fall in love again. Nothing, none of it. And I'm so, so grateful to him, because the love that I experienced was like nothing I'd ever experienced in the world. Nothing. And even though it came at a price, which was heartbreak, I don't regret 1 minute of it. Not one. It is so true. It is better to have loved than to have never loved before. Trust me. Now, compare my experience to a very good friend of mine. She definitely went through some rough times, but in the end, she ended up marrying her soulmate. And despite the fact that she had already had 2 sons and she had gotten remarried, she had a 3rd son. And I mean, her husband is her best friend. And she ended up with her soulmate, and she is very happy. And if you were to meet them, I love them to bits. I admire and respect their relationship so much. I think they are the best example of what marrying your best friend is. So you might look at her experience and be like, oh, happily ever after, Cinderella, right? And then look at my story and be like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for you. Don't. We both learned the same lesson, right? We both learned lessons of unconditional love, but our experiences were very different. My experience doesn't nullify or invalidate or validate hers. In other words, because my experience showed up differently to learn the lesson of unconditional love, it doesn't mean that what she's experiencing is not unconditional love. And so when I was sitting in Vipassana and I found myself looking at other people, the most amazing thing happened. On the surface, it looked like everybody had it together and other people were further along and more advanced and doing it better. But when we were actually able to break the noble silence the day before we had to leave the campus at like 7 a.m. in the morning, and we started to exchange our own little personal internal stories that were going on, let me tell you how amazing it was to find out that everybody was actually going through their own little private hell. Okay, we had so many laughs. So many beautiful friendships were created from that. I'm happy to say that I've actually become a part of a small little intimate group of the women who went through this, and we kind of just bonded. And trust me, you get in your own little world. And it's funny because they said, oh, Michelle, we thought you had it all together because you were like the Zen master queen, because I would walk up and down this little 2-block path that we had, and that was the only path that we had. And I would put my hoodie on and my scarves on, and I would like block everybody out, and I would just, you know, pray and have these internal conversations. But to them, they thought like, wow, she's so deep. If they only knew. I was like, what is going on? I was like, oh, universe, work with me. But it just goes to show you, you may know someone's name, but you never know their story. Don't ever compare your life experiences, your spiritual journey. Don't ever compare your revelations your supernova experiences, whatever they may be, with anybody else. And don't take on someone else's experience as truth. Just because it worked for them, just because they've had that experience and you're not having it, doesn't make you less than, doesn't mean you're slow, it doesn't mean you're going to get left behind. It means that you're having your own experience. Live your life. Stay in your lane. Appreciate. Be inspired by what someone has experienced or what they've learned. But don't take it on as your truth until you have walked that path. And that part of the path may not come up for you for some time. It may be right next, or it may be a few years. But one thing you can be sure, whatever you are meant to experience, whatever you are meant to learn, the lessons will continue to come until you learn it. So try not to beat yourself up. If your experiences in life towards your own self-empowerment, towards your own spiritual awakening, towards achieving whatever goals in your life, just because you're not having the same experience does not mean that you're not with it, that you're the loser. Okay? So, let's see now. What else can I share? Oh my gosh, I'm just trying to, right, I'm looking at my notes and I wrote, if it's not your experience, then it's not your truth, period. So kind of an appendix there. What I mean by that is, you know, if someone is, whatever their experience is, whatever their spiritual gifts are, whatever goals they're achieving in their lives, and however they've gotten to that place, if you haven't experienced it as truth, as in, yeah, I had the same thing happen to me, or I did the same thing and had the same results, not your truth. I don't care how inspiring the person is. I don't care how magnificent they are. I really don't care who the guru is or what their spiritual gifts are or talent. You can be inspired by it, you can learn from it, and you can even connect with people like that to help you move along in your journey. But what you cannot do is you can't take someone's experience and own it as your truth. So let me give you an example of what that would look like. You know, for many of us, and many of you who I've connected with, and you know me, and either I've coached you, we've worked together, there's so many, and I'm just always amazed how every year the tribe just gets bigger and bigger. You know, as someone who's a highly sensitive person, I'm extremely intuitive. And as an intuitive and a sensitive person who picks up on energy, I have friends who, they've got other things going on. Let's just say they've got other skills going on, okay? They can channel, you know, they can talk to past loved ones, and that's great, but that's not my experience. And I've learned that just because I don't have those experiences does not mean that I'm not where I need to be on my path. Get what I'm saying? And that's all good, because we're not all meant to be clumped in one little narrow path. We each have our own path. And I think what I'm really just trying to say is honor where you are. Find a way to be okay with where you are. Because the truth is that if you're meant to experience anything, if you're meant to go through anything, you're going to go through it. You're going to experience it. So don't take from someone else's barrel just because you're feeling like you're losing out or you've been shortchanged. Because what you do when you do that is you actually invalidate who you are, your very essence. It's like you chop off pieces of yourself. You create friction and misery and frustration for yourself because you're trying to live in somebody else's reality, and that's not your job. It's really not. Your job is just to figure out who you are at a soul level, what your purpose is, and then spend the rest of your life doing that. And however those revelations and those miracles come to you, then so be it. You can learn from other people, but remember, until it's your experience, it is not your truth. So, what else I'm looking down my notes. So, by the way, when I left the Vipassana meditation retreat, I was filled with so much ahas. Like literally, guys, I would try to go to sleep at night and I would just, it felt like a download spiritually. Like I was just seeing chapters of this stuff and I was like, great, I don't have any pen or paper. And I was like, okay, spirits, you're going to have to make sure I remember all of this. And so I ended up, I was driving off the campus and I had my phone with me and I literally have a recorder application and I was literally driving for an hour and like recorded all of this. So in addition to this video, I am going to make accessible this extremely, extremely uncut. So I'm just warning you guys now, you may not be ready for all of that because it's very uncut, but it's raw and it's in the moment and it's literally on the day that I'm driving off of the campus. So a lot of the emotion is still there, different parts of the recording. I even got emotional and started crying and I'm not ashamed of it. I really feel like it's going to be triple times better than this, but I'm mainly doing this because I did hold an event thinking that it got recorded and it didn't. So I wanted to at least do this much this weekend. So remember, acceptance. Accept where you are, work with what you have. Don't compare your experience to somebody else and don't take somebody else's experience as your own. If you want calm in your life, if you want peace and whatever it is you're looking for in your life, remember, you're not looking for material things. It's not the tangible things. They come up in your mind as tangible things like money, a job, but the emotional signature is really what you're wanting to lean into. So you're wanting a relationship, you want to be with your soulmate, you want to fall in love, you want to live happily ever after. The question to ask yourself then is, what do those things mean? What's the emotion that gets evoked when I envision myself having that experience? So maybe for some people, marriage is just blissful love, great tantric sex, whatever it may be, just, you know, passion. So that's the energy, that's the vibration that you're wanting to experience. So what you must do is you have to work from the inside out to cultivate that energetic signature within yourself. I mean, let me tell you, I have a sister who's 13 years younger than me, and she is amazing. She's just flat out amazing. That girl's no joke. And I love her to bits. Wouldn't want to be her. I mean, that's a great example of, I see her and I think the world of her. You know, I wouldn't do a lot of the things she would do, not because they're bad or wrong, but they just don't fit who I am, but they work for her. But she said this to me a few years ago, and I have to share this because she's so awesome. So we were talking about my dating life, and she was like, well, what kind of guy do you want? And I was like, well, you know, I want someone adventurous and who bikes and does this and does that, and, you know, is physically fit. And she was like, Mitchie. That's what my family calls me. Do not call me Mitchie. But she was like, Mitchie. She was like, you're so funny. She was like, you want a guy who, you're nothing like that. She said, you don't even do those things. She was like, guys who are like that, they date girls because they meet in the gym. You know what I mean? She was like, people who go out and do these adventurous things, they meet things because that's what they're doing. And you know, it's a funny little story of my own personal life that my sister said to me a few years back, but she was right. I was having this illusion. Remember that we were talking about a few months ago? I was living in this false reality of like, yeah, I'm going to get this kind of guy and I'm going to envision it. And I was like, okay, reality check. When was the last time you went to the gym? Like, when was the last time you went hiking? Like, are you actively involved in these things? And that's what I mean. Like, it makes so much sense when we think of it, of our external lives. Oh, you want to be a director of a nonprofit organization? Well, gee, do you have experience? Did you go to school for that? Right. We make sure we're what? A match, right? It's the same thing, but on a much deeper level. What I'm talking about is designing and creating and having a life filled with experiences that bring you exactly what you want and what's for your highest good without working for it. So this work is different. The work we've been accustomed to, that society has trained us in, this is more exerting excessive energy unnecessarily. Having the experiences that you desired is more of learning to be with oneself and working to create a vibrational signature, a match within yourself. And that really comes about mainly when you learn to sit with yourself. Excuse my French, when you learn to work on your shit. Yeah, and deal with it. That was one of the biggest things with Vipassana. how quickly we run away from ourselves when things get hot, when they get heated, when we're uncomfortable. You know, how long does it take for us to shift our position, move, figure out a way? We're always looking to be comfortable, you know? And the funny thing is the more that I did that, the more that I shifted in my seat and tried to get comfortable, was actually the more painful it got. Here's the irony. The more that I embraced and was just with what was, and I sat there, I was actually able to find a calm under the pain. So you know that pain, like when your leg falls asleep, or it's kind of like, oh, I really want to move my leg. There's a stillness that comes that you actually tap into, that you are able to sit with it. It doesn't mean the pain goes away, but it almost like it takes the edge off. That's the best way that I can describe it. You're going to have your own experience in whatever you choose to do in life, whether you get a coach, whether you go on spiritual church retreats, whether you engage in a Vipassana meditational retreat. They are all over the world, all over the United States. They're accessible and they're free. You give donations for being able to go through this amazing, amazing experience. And so, you know, if I had to encourage you guys to do anything, I think the biggest thing I would say is work on yourself. Work on the richness and the fullness of your inner life. I'm not really concerned about what you're trying to achieve. You want to go from 3, 4 to 5D. You want to get your dream job. You want to have your dream career. You want to transform your life and be this, step into your power and be the living, breathing vision of who you feel like you're meant to be. Whatever it is, you got to start with you. Sit with you. Sit with you long enough to see what really comes up, and then deal with it. And know this, whatever it is, you'll be fine. No matter how painful it is, you'll be fine. Pain does not last forever. I learned that sitting for up to 10 hours a day. It doesn't last forever. It doesn't I'm gonna say it again. It doesn't last forever. It doesn't. It may shift, it may change, but it doesn't last in its intensity forever. Deal with what comes up, because here's the real golden nugget. If you can sit with yourself long enough and sit in that stillness within yourself and see and be in that moment and deal with whatever is there with you in that moment, that stuff, that raw, uncut, brilliant stuff, that's all you, that's actually what's going to get you to where you want to go. That stuff, that's what's going to actually refine you and get you so aligned with who you really are and your soul purpose, that all the things that you are so desperately reaching externally out for to experience, they'll come to you and the doors will open. There's nothing more frustrating than working so hard and still not achieving the experiences in life that we so desperately want to. So it's not about working harder. If you want to put it that way, it's about working smarter. That's how I like to see it. So listen, I think that's really about it. It's funny because even though I wrote notes, and I did, okay, so I'm looking at these notes, stop trying to change your situations. No, I talked about that already. Like, we're always looking to make ourselves more comfortable. You know what I mean? We're adjusting, we're shifting. Where in your life are you shifting and adjusting constantly, that you're constantly trying to change the external circumstances and not changing your internal vibrational circumstance? Because that's what you really have to work on. So the relationships that you're so angry about because they don't respect your boundaries, it's not people not respecting your boundaries. It's you learning how to honor them. And the way we honor boundaries, and I'm just using that as a great example because that's something too I had to work through. The way you honor boundaries is you learn to say no. And then guess what? People either ante up and they go, oh, wow, she honored that boundary. Well, let me not do that again. Or guess what? They get the heck out of Dodge. Either way, you get the experience you want. Respect of your boundaries. You see that? But what we're doing is we're looking outside of ourselves and we're getting angry And the people around us, like, you never stepped in my boundaries. I told you don't step over that line. Why are you stepping on? Oh, well, you're not giving consequences. You're not sticking to the boundaries. That's why you have that situation. Done. You get the point, okay? So stop trying to change, manipulate, control your external world and work on manipulating, control, and fix the inside first, okay? So you have to do the work. So this probably is a no-brainer at this point. So this is what I mean by you have to do the work. When I first got to the Vipassana, like I told you before, I was like, oh, let me put this cushion up my booty. Let me shift here. Let me do it this way. The bottom line is that what I realized afterwards is the first 2 days, I was just so not trying to do the actual work. And the work was simple. Cross your legs, fold your hands, close your eyes, and sit. And don't move for an hour. I was like, well, let me do this. And even, I was even trying to like bring in my own method of meditation. And it's funny because you listen to these teachings nightly, and the main man, namaste to his spirit, because he transitioned and he's not here. He passed on and almost 2 years ago. But the recordings are there and you still learn from him. And in one of the recordings, he was like, oh, and don't try to bring in your own method of meditation. He's like, just do it exactly the way that we're telling you to do it. And I was like, oops, busted. But the point is that we do try to incorporate our own method of doing things. And sometimes when we do have a teacher or a coach or a loved one or just that voice of reason, that we know the good we ought to do, but we want to kind of change it up. We want to do it our own way. And then we're upset that we're not experiencing the results that we've been told we should experience. Do the work. Just do the work. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in coaching people, I give some really basic tools to begin with, because I know that until the person becomes a master at those tools, we're not going to get anywhere with doing anything deeper. And I've had clients slow their roll by their own choices because they were trying every which way to manifest these goals in their lives or manifest an experience spiritually, but they just would not do the works. And you can ask any one of my girls or guys that I work with, and whenever things start going off track, when the train starts to come off track, the first question I ask them is, okay, how are the basics? How are you doing with your basics? Because when the foundation is crumbling, when you're not being consistent with doing the work every day. So it's not about a one-time thing. It's about being consistent with doing the work that's necessary. As I've grown, I've had to adopt different rituals. I've had to incorporate different tools into maintaining and nurturing and nourishing my well-being, my spiritual being, my intellect, all of that. And it changes every year. But what can't change is I can't avoid doing the work, which is why when I started to really feel off and I was like, whoa, something's a little bit off here, I knew I needed to do something. And I knew it needed to be intense. Like, I needed a little bit more than just checking in at Club Med, or at least my version of Club Med, which is like a B&B up in the mountains and walking trails and sitting down and reading books. I know, I'm a super geek if you didn't figure that out already. But at the end of the day, stop running from doing the work. Do the work on yourself. And it doesn't matter if that work is honing your spiritual gifts and finding a teacher to help you to grow stronger in that. If the work is you need to go back to school so that you can be eligible, so that you can be a qualified candidate for that dream job that you want. If the work is you need to get counseling, you need to see a therapist so that you can work through the pain of, childhood trauma or abusive relationships or broken relationships so that you can have the relationship of your dream. If the work is that, you need to attend some parenting workshops so that you can better be able to relate to your child who may be going through it. Whatever the work is, again, sit long enough to see what comes up and what comes up. Whatever the work is that you need to do, stop trying to get around it. Stop trying to manipulate it. Do it exactly as it's been put before you, and just do it. Trust the process. And believe me, the universe will always cough up people who will love you through it, guide you through it, hold your hand through it, give you a shoulder or two, to support you through it. But you have to commit. You have to commit to doing the work. I'm sorry. I wish I could say something else. I really do, at the bottom of my heart. But nothing in life works like that. That actually goes against the natural laws of nature. It goes against the laws of the universe, because we do reap what we sow. So when things aren't showing up in my life, when things are kind of off and I'm finding myself responding in ways consistently in a way that I know is not in alignment with who I know myself to be, I know I've slipped with doing some work. Whether it's I've slipped in doing my consistent basic work every day, which for me is meditation, taking long walks, because for what I do, I have to stay very closely connected to my core. That's very important, because when you're around a lot of people consistently and you're giving and helping people and doing work with energy and all of that, that's some work. That's some work. So that is what I wanted to say. So do the work. Stop procrastinating, stop avoiding, stop delegating. Do your work, the work that's meant for you. No shortcuts. Let me see, what did I write here? I've got to look and see. The other work too might be let go of your expectations of others. The work might be speaking your truth. So like I said, whatever the work is for you, the point is just do it. Want to hear that again? Just do it. So, I've had a really great time talking about this. One thing I will say is, so what got me through the 10 days? So I shared some revelations that I've had, and like I said, nothing like super like, oh my gosh, the Coach Michelle just laid down some fierce and fabulous new truths, you know what I mean? But there's something about experiencing that truth that then becomes ingrained in the very fiber of your soul, in the cells of your soul. And I think one of the biggest things is when you first get to Vipassana, they do tell you, you have to commit. No matter what happens, no matter what bodily functions fall apart, no matter if your body falls apart, your mentality falls apart, your emotional well-being, they're like, commit to remaining on the retreat grounds, doing the work, commit to it. Just give it 10 days of your life. And I'll be honest, when they first said that, I was like, why all the drama? Like, why be so intense? It's just meditation. Woo! Yeah. Okay, anyway, so now I understand. And what I would say to you is, wherever you are in your life, you're going to need to make a commitment. And the commitment we made at the Vipassana wasn't a commitment to the teacher. It wasn't even a commitment to the process. It was a commitment to ourselves. Commit to not abandon ourselves, to not run away from ourselves, to not run away from whatever good comes up from sitting. And I really believe with all my heart that even before going to Vipassana, the times when I've been able to have breakthroughs, the times when I've been able to glean deep wisdom that have allowed me to do just and have such amazing experiences in my life, have been the times that I've committed to myself, to not run away from myself, to not abandon myself, to commit to myself, to honor my truth. You got to commit. You got to commit. And I'm going to say this one last thing because it did come up in my mind. So here's the deal. As you're committing and doing all the other things I've talked about, you will have people who will not support you. They won't understand you. They won't relate to you at all. They'll think you're crazy. They'll probably feel like you're too intense. They'll try to water down your dreams. They will, and don't get me wrong, when people do these things, I believe it's not always from an intentionally mean place. It's really more of a reflection of how they're feeling about themselves. So that old adage, don't take it personally. But what I want to say is, remember when I was talking previously about stay in your lane and your experience is your experience and don't look to another. I have to tell the story, and I'm going to end it here, okay, about Hello Kitty, Miss Hello Kitty. So in the Dharma Hall, I told you we're in rows. And if you can envision in the movies, you see the Buddhist monks and they're like in those straight rows. That's really how it is. And you get a designated spot. And every day, that is your spot. So it's not like people come in and every day they're scrambling to get a spot. From day one, you have a spot. So I had Miss Hello Kitty. And the minute she sat down, I was like, oh, she's young. I was like, she can't be more than 20 maybe. And she had these really interesting feet. They're like Fred Flintstone feet. I'm sorry. She is so sweet though, and she was beautiful. Like, I'm not exaggerating. She looked like a model, and you know, you kind of see people and you start creating stories in your mind like, oh, I wonder where they're from and what their story is. So really quickly, it didn't take long for me to realize that Miss Hello Kitty, oh, and the reason why she was Hello Kitty is because she had this big blanket that was Hello Kitty on it. And I was like, okay, you know, like, all right, I'm not going to judge, you know what I mean? But boy, it did not take long till I think I wanted to throw that girl out the window. She could not keep still. And when you're in the Dhamma hall and everyone is doing this in-depth meditation, in the first 2 or 3 days, you're so consumed with just your own internal struggle to just try to keep still. But pretty much by day 4, which is kind of like the make it or break it day. And we had like, I think we started out with something like 30 women. And I think we ended up with something like 26 because 4 of them left. Because it is that intense. It's not an easy thing, but it's definitely worth it. And anyway, I just went through so much. In my head, I was just like, oh, how dare she? She's not taking this serious. And because any little movement. So here's the thing. The reason why you observe noble silence is because your meditation practice becomes so deep that the slightest little movement from anyone in the room, you feel it. Listen to what I said. I didn't say you hear it. You feel it vibrationally. And it's almost like it almost feels like little microscopic earthquakes. And so sudden movements can throw the whole row off balance. And so she was constantly moving. And I was getting so worked up. And I was thinking, I'm going to have to talk to the teacher. I cannot do this. And finally, it kind of hit me over the head like an iron hammer. Clunk. It was just kind of like, you know, it kind of sounded like this. I'll do that again. It was like, duh. That's exactly what you're learning, Mish. Like, you can't be focused on what's going on with someone else. You've got to just stay in your lane. Like, work with what is. So every day, Miss Hello Kitty served me up distraction upon distraction. But here's the deal. On the last day, she was one of the best and most beautiful interactions that I had. Because, you know, you go through this experience and after a while, for so many days, I only knew people by their feet and their sandal because I'm literally like, I'm not even looking at anybody. I'm literally looking down like this the whole time. Literally. And so when we were finally able to talk, I grabbed her and I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, you drove me nuts. I was a bit, you know, you understand that whatever comes out now, we're in a place we don't take it personal. I was like, you had me cracking up at one point because she would giggle. She'd be like, and we're supposed to be observing noble silence. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through 10 days? And this young girl is seemingly not taking this serious. And then I started fantasizing. I was like, well, maybe she's the daughter of one of the teachers and she was forced to come. I mean, I was thinking all sorts of things, trying to justify why the way she was showing up wasn't fitting what I felt like it should look like. See how we do that? And so I was creating all this turmoil within myself because in my mind, she wasn't respecting the process, all this other crap. And finally I was like, hello, Mish, like, what's going on, Mish? Like, boom. And the truth is by the end of the time, I looked at her and I thanked her. And we hugged and she was like, why are you thanking me? And I was like, because every time you moved, I didn't realize it in the beginning, but it made me dig deeper into my meditation, to become so engulfed within my own consciousness that nothing would reverberate through my energy field. So because of her, I worked harder and I became stronger. And so I'm going to leave you with that, because I want you to understand something. When you stop listening to this, you're going to think about a lot of the things that I've said. And I think one of the things I really want you to hold on to is, no matter what the struggle is, no matter who the person is, what the obstacle is, what the mountain is, however it's appearing in your life, they are making you stronger. It is making you stronger. You may not see it right now, and you may not feel it right now, but trust me on this, they are. And in the end, you will do exactly what I did, and you will say, namaste. You'll thank them. Sometimes the most painful, the most arduous, and the most challenging parts of our path are the moments when we grow the strongest, sometimes the fastest. When we learn so much, it gives us that quantum leap to that next place, that next space, that next level for us. Not a level that puts us in a hierarchy with other people, but a level within our own reality. And so thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope you were able to get something out of it and all of my little fun stuff. So yay! I just love being me. I really, really hope that it helps you on your path and on your journey. Looking forward to seeing many of you. Spirit School, Core Conscious Academy will be opening soon. So definitely stay in contact with me. If you're looking for me, you can find me on Facebook. So you can find me at facebook.com/Uber Coach, UBERCOACH, Michelle. And that's MICHELE. Excuse me, all one word. You can go to my website, but it's under construction right now, but it's great for you to have. That's corecompasscoaching.com. It's all one word, Core Compass Coaching, but core is spelled COEUR. Always on Facebook, always loving to meet new people and engage. And I promise we'll have a lot more videos for teaching spiritual truths and life empowerment techniques and helping you guys to get to exactly where you need to be. Namaste. Talk to you guys later.